You can't help but feel really a real sense of sadness when you read about the story of Jonathan Larson, the composer, the playwright. It was a story that I did not know. I knew a little bit about, just given Rent and the popularity of Rent, before going into this movie, but reading more of it, obviously watching this movie and then reading more of it. Um, he struggled for years to get that. What's kind of the crux of this movie, Tick Tick Boom, his play Superbia, this Orwellian musical, really off the ground. He was the poster child of a starving artist in New York, who found success finally, tragically, when he put his pet project to bed after many, many rejections, pivoted to writing and producing Tick Tick Boom, this rock monologue as it's known, and then producing Rent. And then I'm going to use the one F bomb we're allotted on the show every week, and then dies the fucking day it's set to start its preview run on off Broadway at the age of 35. And I've said it on the show before, and I've lived it the last 5 months or so personally. Fair applies to Ferris wheels and funnel cakes. It does not apply to life. Okay, it doesn't. And the story of Jonathan Larson is tragic because he never got to see the fruits of his labor fully realized on this global scale that it has been. And for that, I'll say Tick Tick Boom, absolutely. I think does him justice. And maybe that's the end all be all at the end of the day. But I think between the clear affection Lin-Manuel Miranda has for him, after all, he was inspired greatly by Rent. I mean, he's talked about that openly. That
Every musical since Rent has been inspired by Rent. It is really that much of a landmark of in the way Hamilton or West Side Story or
yes.
I'm missing so much more, but Rent is particularly for its moment in time in the 2000, early 2000, or was it late 90s? I forget.
I want to say early to mid 2000. The movie I remember came out in 2005. No, I take that back. It was the mid 90s. I take that back. It was the mid 90s.
Okay. So it was. You're right. Rent premiered in 1996 at the Theater Workshop in New York, and then it was adapted to film in 2005. So there's about a 9-year gap in between. But that actually perfectly encapsulates that moment in time, which is seemingly post-AIDS, but hell no, it's not. But also pre 9/11 gritty New York, kind of the last vestige of gritty New York, because everyone idealizes the 70s grittiness of New York. And then into the 80s where it's like Wall Street's bumping up on it. But then it's kind of like the lost decade in the 90s between here and there, between 9/11 and the flash of the 80s. But that's all history of New York stuff. Really, Rent and its style of music and the topics it can cover. And honestly, when I first started, I didn't know much about Jonathan Larson either. I should say Chelsea, my fiance, but Chelsea she's more of a musical person than I am. Probably between the three of us, more than the three of us, Joe included. She was like, yeah, so much has been influenced by Rent and by extension Jonathan Larson, just to the point where when I first started hearing the music of Tick Tick Boom, I was like, this almost feels like parody, because it's like, it's in that style where it's like, yeah, it's like upbeat and it's like power vocals, and it's got that kind of rock guitar, but not too hard rock guitar, and the driving rock beat. And it's like, this almost feels like parody, something that South Park parodied on Team America with the AIDS song.
It suffers from the Godfather syndrome, as I like to say.
Exactly.
It suffers from the Godfather syndrome, where it's been parodied so much that you feel like, even though it's the first time seeing it, that you've seen it before.
It's like Dune, where it's like, this looks like Star Wars. This looks like, this and that. Like, no. This influenced everything that it wound up being influenced, that the movie wound up being influenced by, funny enough. So yeah, hearing that style almost brought me in for a chuckle, but it draws you in so darn well, I thought. And it has those elements, kind of like In the Heights did. It has those fantastical elements. It's not afraid to go off that, because it's telling it's not only doing straight up the Tick Tick Boom stage play to an extent, and then it goes off that book and into just straight up autobiography. But then it takes those fantastical elements where it's like, okay, we're doing this now, where we're swapping characters seemingly in the moment. The walls are coming down, and we're having this big musical moment. And that's just you're using the medium effectively, and I'm very glad Miranda was able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like a lot of this. I like a lot of the technique around here. I would say that the thing that I would say offset me with the movie is that I wonder if the urgency, because that's what this movie really is. It's very urgent, just given the setting, the backdrop, and everything. The fact that like we're butting up against, the title is in reference to Jonathan Larson's 30th birthday, and all the time and sweat and tears he's poured into this project Superbia to get made and get seen and get on Broadway, and all the fact that his influences have all accomplished far greater things than he did well before 30. I think a lot of us can relate to that. You're closer to 30 than I am.
This is really like if Bo Burnham wanted to make Inside, not for Netflix, but for Broadway, pretty much. That's pretty much what it was in the 90s too.
I was going to say quite a lot of content here, but the thing with Tick Tick Boom though, is I will say, and this is just opining here, is that I wonder if the urgency that's offered by the stage is more conducive to this breed of storytelling. I think the main criticism I have with this movie is that there's so much style that overtakes this whole thing that it's easy to get lost in sort of the frenetic pace of the whole movie. And that was the thing that kind of maybe held me back from loving it as opposed to liking it, is that there's a lot of sentimentality here, and it's very hectic, and it's so wrapped up in haste that I think it loses I think Miranda sacrifices a lot of the qualities he has as a writer, as a composer, and really as even a director too, even though this is his feature directorial debut, that's inherent to a lot of his stories. I don't think the songs here carry the weight that they do. And I think a lot of the movie is just so caught up in style and this hectic pace that I don't think it really slows down to focus or narrow in really on what could be extremely special about it. That was the kind of crossroads I had. And I don't even know if I succinctly summarized that, but that is the closest I can come to putting my finger on why I liked but didn't love this thing.
It's hard exactly to say why, because we haven't seen the we're not getting Tick Tick Boom, the stage musical, in its pure form. It is going from what I've read, it's going off and doing its own thing to I can't judge. I think to a decent extent, and that's not even a style thing. I think it might be plot wise too. Again, condensing, kind of like how In the Heights. If you look at the book, and by book I mean like the stage book, and the movie, it cut out like a lot of songs and even characters as well, which I realized the film has to do. Right? You can't make Saving Private Ryan can't cover all 6 hours of the D-Day landings, or all 12 hours of the D-Day landings. That was the longest day back in the 50s. But I will say that I think the end result of what we got here is probably as best as we can possibly get it, and I am very much okay with that. I think they, as you mentioned at the very start, Steve, they did Jonathan Larson justice here. Did they get the pure essence of Tick Tick Boom? And could they have gone more into that? I think they probably could have gone even grittier, in my opinion. I don't know if maybe at that point you just want to redo the film production of Rent. But I think this is probably as good as we could have gotten, all things considered. Let me say, you can tell that 5,000 Broadway Productions. 5,000 Broadway Productions is the production company that made this, and I believe owned, or at least created by, I think owned by, or partly owned by, Lin-Manuel Miranda. And you can tell that this is the same production company that made In the Heights, because there is so much. If you put those movies side to side, the color palette, the probably I can't tell for sure, but probably the filters and the lenses and everything, to the point where like the background green screen or blue screen that they were using is like that. Oh, that looks very In the Heights to me. What they were doing there, just small little detailed things. But honestly, again, I'm okay with it because really what we got here was it captured the, well, again, I'm not that well versed in Jonathan Larson's work. I don't think it's that hard of a project to do because he wasn't able to put out so much, but I thought it captured it. If Jonathan Larson was this frenetic, eclectic, almost mad genius of a writer who was not afraid to get down and dirty and gritty, then I think it did its work. I think mission accomplished there. Is there room for more of that?
It shows too. It shows too a lot of it, and maybe and this was an angle. I'm not going to go too deep in it. I talked more about it in my review. I'm not going to go too deep in it, but like it irked me in a way, but I could see it like just as a character thing. But like it shows you that you have to have an obsessive mindset, a really almost narcissistic mindset in order to make it in the Broadway sphere. And you know what? To end on a positive note, because like I said, far be it from me to really lambaste a movie for being good, not great, in my personal opinion. Damn it if Andrew Garfield isn't here. Isn't great here. It's taken us a while to get here, but I want to end on this. Andrew Garfield, there's a little bit of Oscar buzz for him right now. And I would not argue that he should absolutely be in consideration for a Best Actor nomination, because this guy, I mean, first off, it's like, I think a lot of us are like, holy crap, he can sing. He can sing, and Chelsea he can sing extremely well.
Can Andrew Garfield sing? Like, he's taking on Jonathan freaking Larson's work. That's like, there's some power vocals in there, man. It's like, yeah, I guess he did, because that's like, this doesn't sound like a voice alike. It's right within his head voice. Like, that sounds like if Andrew Garfield could sing, and apparently he can. And like, I was looking up, I was like, surely he did other Broadway productions then, if he's doing this. No, he just learned to sing. He just learned to sing for this freaking movie. And I'm like, damn, that's impressive.
That is impressive as hell. And there's only a couple songs that really stood out to me personally. Like Why is one of them that I really liked in this movie. But Garfield body, don't act like bro ain't bodying these vocals over here. Okay, like that is the thing that keeps you entrenched in it, if nothing else, is that Garfield really does. At some points, he really is kind of putting on, and I know Tick, Tick, Boom kind of was in some ways a one-man show, a rock monologue, but you know, he really, I mean, some scenes are just entirely him. And I'll end too on a positive note as well, beyond Garfield, is that the scene I really like the most in this movie, because they could have played it for laughs, but they didn't, is the scene when Garfield's Larson returns home and he sees that the electric company turned off, you know, his power and everything.
Yeah.
And he makes the phone call to the electric company and he says like something to the T of, you don't understand. I have a workshop. How could you? I have a workshop. And that scene is deathly serious. And it's sad. And it's heartbreaking. That was my favorite scene in the movie, because that was a scene that they could have really tonally screwed up. And I think because Lin-Manuel Miranda's behind the camera of this whole thing, Lin-Manuel Miranda's like, that isn't a joke. Like, that's real.
That's artist shit right there, man.
Like,
that's
he's
real
like,
artist stuff.
This is not a time. That's not a laughing matter. That's a life matter right there. And I love that scene. It's sad as it is. They nailed that scene. And that's the scene I think I'll remember about Tick, Tick, Boom, was that. And I think it helps when you get somebody like Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's so well versed and came, you know what I mean, came from the mud in so many words. You see it in a scene like that and just how it's played deathly serious, because it ultimately is deathly serious.
And you know what? I'll end on this by saying what a fitting, almost like very indirect tribute, but tribute nonetheless to Stephen Sondheim. Like just that legacy. Like Sondheim is the character. I thought Sondheim was going to be like a small, kind of cameo thing, and in fact, he literally does make a cameo in the voicemail. The voicemail that is actually Stephen Sondheim speaking. But
okay,
no, he's actually like a very strong minor character in the sense that this is like that is like the personification of, I mean, also in real life too, Stephen Sondheim was the personification of like every Broadway artist's dream. Once Sondheim made it and he's just banging out all those hits, my God, we could have done a whole segment on Stephen Sondheim. And we'll get another chance when West Side Story comes out, and we'll talk about that movie. Stephen Sondheim's very first musical was, I believe, West Side Story, and my God, what a legacy! And the way, hey, yo, shout out to longtime, oh my God, Bradley Whitford, longtime Aaron Sorkin collaborator, for really nailing that Stephen Sondheim look and presence of just being a big, not an asshole, but just more like, just the fact the film treats him like that he is the guy in the back of the room, literally the guy in the back of the room. You feel like all your hopes and dreams rest on the opinion of this guy, and so much of Broadway, I feel like, is like that. And well, they certainly portray that here. So my goodness, what could not have been more timely with the passing of the great Stephen Sondheim. So I guess I'll give my rating. This is an easy 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. This is a good time. The fact that we were able to get it in Netflix too, I hope it reaches a lot of people, because movie musical like West Side Story, that's actually a toss up for me whether it'll make its money or not, because it's it's Spielberg and West Side Story and the big Hollywood musical. But there's COVID. Do movie musicals really do that well anymore? Yes and no. We'll
Rent
In the Heights
flopped. I mean, different climate.
Well, Rent flopped hard, but Rent
flopped hard. In the Heights didn't do well.
No, it didn't. So it's actually 50-50. This, I knew like this wasn't going to do well only in the theaters, or would not have done well if it was only in the theaters, because it's a little more obscure. It's a musical about the guy who made the big musical. So it's very insider, very kind of like how film buffs, they'll love La La Land, and all the musicals guys will love La La Land, but will it have the big appeal? Apparently that did. So, but yeah, dude. But just on Andrew Garfield's, the big two things here is that Andrew Garfield's presence here and performance here is fantastic, and two, this story got justice. This story did its subject matter justice, so, very much so, and even on those two merits, but so many other great work here. We didn't talk about the supporting cast, which did a hell of a good job, like Robin De Jesus and
Robin De Jesus was good.
Those guys were pulling their weight big time. I didn't even know they were going to go that hard into Jesus's character's story, but they freaking went there, probably because it probably happened a lot in real life too. But yeah, dude. So I'll just leave it there. 3.5 out of 4 stars. Steve, what say you?
Yeah, I end with this saying that, like, again, I couldn't get as wrapped up in the story, and I don't know if it's really so much as a flaw with the story or as a flaw with me personally, in that regard. I found like, and maybe it's just because, and I will say this too. This is a movie that I think I'll probably revisit in a little while, whether it be 6 months or a year from now, just given the deluge of musicals. I think we get a lot of musicals, and West Side Story is coming up again in a couple weeks too, where it's like that are so broad that they focus on a lot of different things, where here's a musical that's very insular. Even Dear Evan Hansen, as much as I hate bringing that movie up, showed the outer effects, the external effects of one person's action.
I think you love bringing that movie up. Don't kid yourself. But anyway, go on.
Horrible movie. I even think that I even think when I talked about like sort of like a little bit of the grating, maybe underlying narcissism of Larson's character in this movie in my review, I said like he's nowhere near as toxic as Evan Hansen, but admittedly very few of us are. But moreover though, I like a lot of this movie, but there's just certain things of it that I wasn't a big fan of. I didn't find a lot of the songs as resonant as some of past Miranda works, as some of Lin-Manuel Miranda's past works. Even the way they were articulated on screen, I just felt that the pacing of this movie was a little bit much at times, especially for such an insular story. So it is a kinder than assumed 2.5 out of 4 stars for me. It's a kinder than assumed 2.5 out of 4 stars. Andrew Garfield, though, again, a guy I hope to see recognized this award season, if nothing else, or at least by the broader spectrum. The guy, I'll tell you, I did not expect to be personally attacked, and I don't want to get into this too much, but a couple days after I watched Tick, Tick, Boom, I was on Twitter. I allow myself like 5 minutes of Twitter a day, and that's it. This was a good thing, not a really, lift your spirits type of thing, but a good thing was that, like, I saw an interview with Andrew Garfield on Jimmy Kimmel for about 5 minutes. And he talked about how his mother died recently of cancer. And he talked about grieving and the grieving process. And again, hits a little close to home with me. I lost my mother in August. And he talked about how he's like, I don't want to stop grieving because grieving is a love that refuses to die.
Right.
And I almost don't want to go too much in. I get a little choked up talking about it because it's not something like, that was like, I expected to see in the way it hit me, but like, damn it, man. Like, no, it was, I like Andrew Garfield a lot. I always have. I think he's a very studious actor. I think he's a very studious person. And I think he's a very accomplished actor. And my God, can he sing? That's the thing that I really love about this movie. The thing I can't stress enough is that he can sing. And that's the crowning point of Tick, Tick, Boom.
His entry level to Broadway stuff is freaking Tick, Tick, Boom. Out of all,
I know.
That's not training wheel shit, man.
Playing the Godfather of, like, again, who you said inspired this generation really of playwrights is unbelievable. And he
Dear
nailed
Evan
it.
Hansen inspired the works of Dear, like jokes aside, like the music of Dear Evan Hansen, you could go straight back to Jonathan Larson's kind of half rock, half musical style there. It's so clear, such a clear thread.
And the guy didn't live to see it for as much as he struggled.
He didn't get to live to see Dear Evan Hansen on screen, so we're good.
He's trying to make a really serious point here.
Sorry.
I end with this. Fair applies to Ferris wheels and funnel cakes, not life.